Hey YouTube, it's Taki with TaqiTech, back after a very long break. It's funny, I initially said that this would only take 6 more videos. It's probably been about 3 weeks since I last recorded. It's not that I haven't been working on this project at all in the last 3 weeks. I got to the part of the project that has stopped it in its tracks 2 times. And that basically is trying to get the scheduled task time, or better to be more specific, that meeting time, that 11 a.m. meeting time. How do we go back? Or how, I mean, basically, we're dealing with 3 different elements here, but we have to pretend that that third element is actually a part of the second element. And that took a lot of thought and a lot of planning. And the reason why this episode, sorry, I forgot what I was doing here. So, episode 16, skipping Model 5, loading task periods 2. The reason it took so long for me to record another video is I really needed to just focus and not necessarily focus on, okay, I did this little thing here, I'm going to record it. And part of the reason I didn't do that either is because I would make something and I would say, okay, how is this going to hold up? Or, it would be more cerebral where I'm just sitting there, just thinking about, okay, not actually writing code, but thinking about it and saying, okay, how should I approach this here? So there was a lot of thought that was spent on it, more thought than coding, just because I think it's a measure of how seasoned I've become, so to speak. Especially when you're working on a one-man project. You could code yourself out of a project. You can make things so complicated and so convoluted with all the different types of code that you've written and then you're afraid to erase some because you don't want to lose what little bit that you have or what little progress you have. But sometimes in order to really achieve what you need to do, you just need to erase and start over again and just take the code that you wrote before. It's sort of a learning process. So I wasn't keeping up recording every little single change that I made as I was working on Model 5. And as a matter of fact, I scrapped Model 5 almost right off the bat because I said, okay, I could code this, but will it have any flexibility for when I need to do Model 6, when I have more than one meeting time, or possibly more than 2 meeting times? And I will approach it before we're done with this project. I want to start printing, out the times here, get the timesheet printed out before we start kind of really doing a lot of the troubleshooting, a lot of the error correction, writing that in, and then maybe even that third meeting time, because I think it would just take a few lines of code here. So I just wanted to bring you guys up with where I'm at on the project. I just watched the last video I recorded. I said I would have 6 more videos left. That was funny. I mean, maybe I kind of subconsciously knew that that it would take me so long to record the next video, and that I would take such big steps in between videos. But I think we're going to have more than 6 videos. I'm way past my deadline for this project, but I'm hoping to finish it a month out. And I got sick. It's a complex timesheet. We walked in saying that sometimes you just need to have that buffer. If this was actually a client that came to me, we would have to drop the meeting times if they wanted to meet the original deadline that I set. And just because it's something that's so out of the box here and the way it's treated. All right, so let's get to some code here. Basically, I'm going to try something new. I want to talk about 2 different changes and 2 different procedures that you saw last time. But before I do that, when we start looking at the models and the code that I wrote for the different models, I'm going to throw them in Word, the models, and we're going to look at them in Word, because one of the things I noticed on the last video is I went away from the main page here, and this is the data that the code needs to be reading. If I switch off on the worksheet and I don't have, if I don't tell the code doesn't, if I don't write inside the code for it to switch back, and it doesn't know to switch back to the sheet, I'm not even sure how I got the correct results last time, unless I ran, I think, no, I actually did switch the sheet, then I hit play, and I was like, watch, it's gonna blow up, and it didn't. I'm not sure exactly why. That code is gone now. It's been modified to such an extent that I couldn't redo it again, but fortunately I got the results I was looking for in the video. But you don't want to, when you're running code on one sheet, you don't want to be switching to another sheet while the code is still being ran, while you're still going through the code. You need to keep that the same sheet. So I'm going to start throwing some of the models on Word, and this is just an experiment. I want to see how this looks on video. So here we go. Here's our new load tasks, which we used last time. I'm going to try to maximize this. So bear with me here, because I didn't, let's see here. Actually, let me pause the video real quick. I should have figured this out before I started recording. Hold on. Okay, so this is kind of what I wanted. It's not, but I'm going to increase the font size a lot here. Let's see here. All right, so this is our new load tasks subroutine that I had in the last video, and it is completely different now. That's because it's basically a controller, and what it's doing is it's calling a function that we talked about in the last video called count tasks. But I made that count tasks function a little bit more dynamic. And basically, the count tasks function's sole purpose is to tell you the number of tasks that you have. But what the reason I made it dynamic is I wanted it to be able to, let's take a look at the spreadsheet real quick. So let me get back to that. I wanted it to be able to, I wanted to throw in column C or D or even B and tell me, okay, so I have this many meeting times, so I'm using it for multiple uses now. Same code giving me the same results, and that's kind of what you want to look for when you're writing code. Am I writing like the same procedures basically, but this doing, if it's looking at one column and this is looking at another column? And sometimes it's fine to do that. Sometimes you might have a good reason, very good reason to do that. In this case, it wasn't. So basically, since it was the same shell of code, I just went in and I modified it a little bit. So let me get back here to the code. So we count our tasks. We're looking at column B. And column B would be right here. And this is telling us how many scheduled tasks do we have. And back to Word. So it tells us if we don't have any scheduled tasks, then we're just going to run the last subroutine that we last run. And I renamed it load no scheduled tasks. It's the same subroutine that was in the last video. This is load schedule tasks. We're going to talk about that in the next episode here. And then, here's the count tasks again. Let me make this a little bit bigger, font size, and let's go here. So this is a private function again, like I talked about. We're passing in the column letter as a string, returning the count tasks as an integer. Sometimes I get a little lax and I don't put as what I'm returning the function as, and I think that could be important, at least to keep the data type in your mind of what you're returning. Only needed to dim two variables here, or declare two variables here. One is row count, the other one is task count. The task count is of course going to be 0. That's actually going to be we're going to say count tasks equals task count at the end here and return that as the integer. And then a row count is basically we're telling it what row to start at. We're incrementing it in a do loop. We're saying go until it reaches 21, so it should go through at least 7 times. It will go through 7 times because we didn't put any other condition on the do until loop. And here we are. So it's going to start with looking at our sheets. Row 14, column letter, which would be, we would pass it in, and this time we were passing in B. And if it doesn't equal nothing, then we're going to count the task. If there's something there, then task count equals 1 plus 1 ongoing, and basically when we run it on the current Model 6 spreadsheet, we get 2. And then we would go back up to our controller. So let me get back to the code here. Let's go back to the next page. Let me see what's here. Is this okay? And then here we are. We're returning the function task count. So we're saying there's 2 here. Going back here. So it's saying, yeah, there's 2. It's greater than 0. So we're going to have to load this. So that's it. That's part of the changes. Those are the very simple changes that I made. In the next video, we'll start dissecting all the different changes I made. I probably will be able to do it in one video. All the different changes I made in the load, or I wrote in the load tasks function, load schedule tasks function, where we get one array. It's a multi-dimensional array, 1 column, 2 rows, that basically combine a separate array that was out there. So basically, we'll talk about it when we go inside the code in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take it easy.